We're going to dive into this episode today titled Manifesting Your Reality, the Power of Belief, with the theme of Every Imagination is True.
For some positive, encouraging, inspiring information. But before we jump into this episode, I'd like to invite you to join this community to hear more episodes that will help you become healthier emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. All I want you to do is click on the subscribe button. We love your support, and it's incredible to see all your comments, and we're just getting started. I can't wait to go on this journey with you. Thank you so much for subscribing. It means the world to us.
Yes. I want to thank you guys for joining us in-house and you guys who are joining us online. So welcome back to another episode of Contemporary Speaks, where we explore essential topics that actually key in on your physical, your mental, and your spiritual well-being. I'm your host, Stephen, and we're glad that you're tuning in today. Whether you're a longtime listener or tuning in for the first time, we're thrilled to have you with us today. So we're going to dive into this episode today titled Manifesting Your Reality, the Power of Belief, with the theme of Every Imagination is True. So this is inspired by Genesis chapter 11, verse 6. This episode will uncover how our beliefs shape our reality, the creative force of imagination, and how can you transform your life through changing your self-belief. So grab a cup of tea, get comfortable as we get started with this episode. So let's get started. Remember, if you're watching this online today, we love hearing from you. You can comment and also, comment on any of our social media platforms. We appreciate that. So we're going to get started with Genesis chapter 11, verse 6. And in Genesis chapter 11, verse 6, this is what it says. This topic today is going to be very interesting, kind of challenge you a little bit to kind of reshape the way you think a little bit. But here's what it says in Genesis chapter 11, verse 6. It says, "And the Lord said, Behold, the people are one." He says, "And they have all one language. And this they began to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do." And one of the things that you have to really key in on is that if God is saying something, then it is fact, it is truth. And he's saying that when people become one, that what they began to imagine will be. When a people gather together and they began to envision the same thing, when they are unified in their thought, it can be, and it cannot be stopped. In fact, it couldn't be stopped to the point where God himself had to actually come down and confound the languages. That means that's where you start to get Japanese, your Chinese, your Hebrew, all these different dialects, because this was the only way to stop the people, was to divide their speech. They had to start speaking differently, right? And so I want you to think about that when you're trying to achieve a vision. Are you speaking the same way as those who are trying to bring about the vision? Do you have the same language? Are you speaking, or is your language different? Because what will empower the vision is unifying behind the vision. So anything that you're trying to create, if you're trying to start your own business, if you're trying to do something that's brand new, if you could get others behind you or others around you that can speak the same thing, unify with you, it will happen. Not it could happen. No, it actually will happen. Here's the key about this, and you have to understand this. Every imagination is true. Now, you might not realize that, but every imagination is true, which means that the way you think, what you imagine is true. It is actually true. And the power of imagination is very interesting. So when I say that, every imagination is true, You may not realize that where you are in life is where you once imagined yourself being. You may not realize that. Whether it's bad or whether it's good. The Bible actually does say as well that the wicked's thoughts come upon them. So what wicked people think, or the righteous, what they think also comes upon them. So here's what I want you to kind of understand is that the power of unified belief is important. Unified belief, when you all believe the same thing. It's like a family that all believes that they are strong, that they are connected, that they have a bond. And when everyone in the family feels that way and believes that bond cannot be broken. But what if you have someone who doesn't believe that? Unified is really the key. And bringing yourself into this unified understanding, right? When hearts and minds unite, no dream is too grand, no goal too distant. Together, our collective belief shapes the reality we seek. You understand that? Our collective belief shapes the reality that we seek. Sometimes we put achieving a vision on one person because there's a vision caster. But really achieving a vision is on the people who are putting their hands to that vision. Do you understand that? To achieve that vision, it takes everyone working collectively, going in the same direction. Here's another thing to kind of look at. The creative force of imagination. And I love this right here, but imagination is not just your mental exercise, but a creative force that shapes our reality. What we constantly imagine and believe influences our actions, our decisions, and ultimately our life's direction. What you are constantly imagining. So I want you to kind of realize this, right? Here's what it says in Matthew chapter 17, verse 20. I love this. It says, he replied, this is Jesus, right? He replied, because you have so little faith, truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. And here's the thing that you have to realize. How are you moving the mountain if you never imagined the mountain to move in the first place? You couldn't speak to the mountain and tell it to move if you couldn't envision it or imagine it moving. Are you with me? Here's another thing that the Messiah says in Mark chapter 9, verse 23. If you can, said Jesus, everything is possible for one who believes. Everything is possible for the one who believes. And although we hear these things, I don't think that we really understand the real true power or the force of imagination, that all things are possible, even when you imagine the worst scenario, the worst outcome, it is possible. Imagination is the seed from which our future grows. What we envision today becomes the reality we live tomorrow. Think about that. Really think about that. Why do people quit? Why do people give up? Because of their imagination. It's because what they imagined, right? Tying into last week's podcast, we realized that someone buries their talent. And the reason why they buried their talent was because of what they imagined, their imagination. So look at this right here. This is really interesting. Third key point today is that belief is actually a self-fulfilling prophecy. Think about what I'm saying. Your belief is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Are you with me this morning? Right? Our belief about ourselves and others can become self-fulfilling prophecies. If we believe we are capable and deserving, we are more likely to act in ways that bring those beliefs into fruition. So, same thing with negative beliefs. they also can limit your potential. So here's what Matthew chapter 21, verse 21 and 22 says. Jesus replied, I tell you, if you have faith and do not doubt, not only can you do what has been done to this fig tree, but also you can say to this mountain, go, throw yourself into the sea, and it will be done. If you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer. Now, I think that's something that even though God himself is saying it, even though the Messiah is telling you that I'm going to tell you something about God, that God only operates in truth, which means belief and imagination is truth. So that's why it is coming into existence in your life. That you made it true when you thought it to be true. When you imagined it to be true, it became truth. Do you get what I'm saying? So here's something to look at really quick, right? Identifying and, transforming limited beliefs. Let's talk about that. Limiting beliefs. The first thing is recognizing that you have a limited belief. Be it I'm sick, I can't get healthy, whatever that limiting belief, I'll never get another job, I'll never be successful at another job, whatever that might be, recognize the fact that you may have a limiting belief, okay? That's the first thing to do. The first step is to become aware of the beliefs that are holding you back, okay? What beliefs do you hold that are actually holding you back? So you ask yourself a few questions. One is, what are my recurring negative thoughts? What are the things that come back reoccurring? Be it even if let me help you out. Most people will stay broke because they imagine themselves always being poor, always being broke. Most people will stay in debt because that's all they can imagine about their life. They can't envision anything else. Are you with me? Most people will stay unhealthy because that's all they can imagine about their life. Now, I'm not talking about thinking a good thought once upon a time or once in your life or anything like that. I'm talking about how is your imagination? How are you getting carried away with your imagination? Do you realize that all that you imagine will come true? It's a beautiful thing, but a curse as well. It's a very beautiful thing that God will allow us to have these lives that if we believe, it will happen for us. But it's also a life that if you do not believe, it will not happen for you. I mean, we see this in the Bible as well with the Messiah when he couldn't do many miracles because of their unbelief, not because of his unbelief, but because of their unbelief. So you can be carried away with your own imagination. So you have to ask yourself, what are these reoccurring negative thoughts that you may be dealing with? Another thing is, what do I believe about my abilities, relationships, and my potential? What do you believe about those things? Because if you believe you have a toxic relationship, it may not be toxic. It just may be your belief. It just may be the way you envision it and your imagination is working. And if you imagine it to be that way, you will bring it into fruition. When you tell yourself these people don't love me or these people are my enemies, what is your imagination doing to you? How is it working for you and how is it working against you? You have to ask yourself, where do I feel stuck? Where do you feel stuck at? Right? Here's the key. We all should be going toward this place in life that works better for us and for God, right? We all should be getting to a place in life that will work better for us, more efficient for us, and also better for God. And if we're not doing that, then we're stuck somewhere. Okay? You have to analyze the origin of the thought, right? Where did the thought originate at, right? Sometimes past experiences and traumas make us think negative about life. If you grew up and your family struggled, then even if you're not struggling, you're going to imagine yourself that you're struggling, and you're going to bring on that true emotion. Remember, all imaginations are true. So whatever you can imagine becomes the truth within you. You could be in an incredible relationship. You know, the truth could be you think that I can find a better church or a better ministry, but you love that ministry at one time. Can you? So what is it? It's that your imagination about things began to change. You began to, everyone has an imagination, right? And everyone is telling themselves something, right? I can look at any of you and I can think what I think about you. How do I imagine you? And, you know, and all these different things. And how do you imagine me and all these different things, right? Everyone has an imagination. It is constantly at work. Even when you sleep, your imagination is at work. We call it dreams. And dreams are nothing more than the productivity of life. And so the Bible actually says that dreams are produced through a multitude of actual work. So whatever you were thinking while you were awake visits you in your dreams. So when you have some random dream, you're like, wow, must have been something I ate, or some weird imagination that you visited through your day. Right? That's frightening. But it doesn't just poof into thin air. We bring it into existence. We bring it into existence. So culture and familiar conditions can also be things that make you feel or think or imagine the way you do, right? Fear of failure or rejection. Sometimes you don't give yourself the opportunity to fail. You just quit before you can fail, right? But all of this is the construct of one's imagination and how it works. The thing you have to do is you have to challenge your beliefs. And we talked about this many podcasts ago, and I think it's relevant to talk about it again. Are you challenging any of the things that you believe? How do you do that? The first thing that you ask is this belief true? Now, there's a difference of, is it true in the world or is it true in me? You understand that? Is this belief true? What I believe about you or about this job or about this thing or about exercise or about dieting or about anything, is that actually true? Think about that. Is it true? And then what evidence contradicts this belief? When you're having this belief in you, is there any evidence that can actually contradict that belief? Well, I think that this person doesn't like me. Well, why does that person hug you or even talk to you or even ask how you doing? So is there any evidence that can contradict that belief? And then what would happen if you let that belief go? If you had a negative belief about a person or a relationship or your potential, and you let that belief go, what would happen? What would your life look like? Think about it, right? Another thing, reframing your belief. You can reframe beliefs, okay? Transform the limiting belief into an empowering one. So that means that this is the thing that I like to think about with this whole podcast of something has to change. The whole concept of this is not that we are here to change the world, but that we in turn are changed, and by this change, the world is changed. You're with me on that. So reframing your belief Because a lot of times we can work so hard and feel like this world is messed up. This world is this way. I need to fix this world. I need to work. I need to do this, do this, do this. And I love how the Messiah put it once upon a time. He said, the poor you'll have with you all the time. But don't miss this moment. Don't miss this opportunity that is right before you. So reframing your belief, it's not that I need to change the world and end world hunger. I'm not saying don't feed people. But when you make this like, I'm going to end world hunger, or I'm going to make it so there's no crime in the world, or I'm going to fight all the... Maybe the crime and the place of hunger that you need to end is within you. Do you understand that? Reframing your beliefs. Rewrite the narrative. Rewrite the way you see the story, right? And here's another thing. Visualize success. I don't know how many people, they just visualize defeat. They just visualize this ain't going to work out. They just visualize this is just going to be. And if anybody has ever been in a marriage that has once upon a time been toxic, look at where you are today. Is it still toxic? Or is it better? Sometimes you don't even know how it got better. Well, the way it got better is you visualized it getting better. You started to envision it getting better. And once you envisioned it getting better, it manifested itself. It came into fruition. And you could do that with every person in every relationship. And you could do that with your potential. You could do that with your job. It's what are you telling yourself about where you are in life? Affirmation and positive self-talk is huge. I would actually say that you should record yourself encouraging yourself and privately and secretly listen to it daily. I would encourage you to do that. Your own voice on tape, encouraging yourself daily, that no matter how hard the struggle, we can win, we can get past this. Taking empowering actions, right? And I want you to kind of look at this. You have to set achievable goals. Are you setting any type of goals, any type of achievable goals? Here's the thing that I like to always think, that if you can imagine it or think it, then it's achievable. I don't believe that you can actually begin to imagine or dream or envision great things if they're not achievable. I mean, I heard a comedian say it this way, and it was really funny, that someone was sitting at their house and they said, I want to talk to someone who's not even here. And therefore, the telephone was created. Because they envisioned speaking to someone who was in a different location. Isn't that interesting? It's like, man, you can't do that. You can't talk to someone who's in another state or another country. You crazy, man? Yeah, if you can envision it, if you can imagine it, it will come true. And your life is the circumference of what you have imagined it would be and could be. And if you can imagine more, I want to encourage you that it can be more. Taking risks. One of the biggest things as well is that you have to come out of your comfort zone and be so careful not to default back into it. Think about that. We just want to go right back into it. Doesn't even matter. Put these chains back on me. I want you to think about the children of Israel and how they left Egypt. And somehow a crazy thought occurred to them. We were better in Egypt. Why? Because they were hungry. Why? Because it didn't look like ends would meet. Why? Why did they want to go back to Egypt? Because it didn't look as comfortable. It was a struggle. There were times they were hungry. There were times they were thirsty. They had to deal with this new lifestyle. And they refused to adapt or be flexible. Their minds were rigid and hard, unteachable. They didn't have a growth mindset. And they said, I want to go back from the same place you just pulled me out of, God. Think about that. Really think about that. Another thing is surrounding yourself with positivity. I think it's so important that if we're going to leave Egypt and we're going to believe and trust God that he's taken us to a better place, you better surround yourself with some positivity. You know, there's a situation as well that where Moses is in the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. He gets down out of the mountain. He finds out that they've built a whole new god. It's a golden calf. And upon seeing this, everyone who was involved, except for Aaron, mostly everybody who was involved was killed. There's about 3,000. Now remember, there's about 2 million of them. But it's about 3,000. Who are you grouped with? Who do you think like? Who is your... You have to surround yourself. Ooh, don't hang with those 3,000. You have to surround yourself with people who can keep you encouraged and keep your mindset positive about where we're going. No, God said. You know, you look at people like Caleb or Joshua in the Bible. They never lost their faith. You know, no, we're not in Egypt any longer. No, we don't have where we could just go out there and pick this food. We have to grow it every, you know, it was more difficult. Reflecting and adapting is key, guys. Reflecting and adapting. One of the things that I started doing recently is actually, and I'm bad at this, but I actually started doing it and I find it encouraging, is keeping a journal. And it's easy for me because I really don't like to write things down with my hand. My spelling is bad sometimes, and my handwriting to me looks like chicken scratch. But I can do it on my phone. You know, on my cell phone, I have a journal, and it reminds me it's time to write. And then those moments, I can write about however I feel. I can write about how I feel, if I'm feeling discouraged, if I'm feeling motivated, if I feel like I'm accomplished or I'm not accomplishing what I need to be accomplishing. And I can write those things down, and it does feel very interesting to do that. And I have not really been the type of person that does that. But keeping sort of a journal of your experiences is kind of very important, right? So empowering beliefs help you align your actions with your core values, leading to a life filled with meaning and direction. Empowering beliefs, change your belief system and your life will change. Change your belief system. Most people don't realize you have pretty much held the same beliefs that you have for the last 20 years. You don't even realize that. You think you've grown. You think you've changed. I always say that people are in cycles, whether they realize it or not. I always say that people are just repeating the same cycles that they did 20 years ago, whether they realize it or not. I think that we love to get into new situations and believe that these new situations are somehow different. And I believe it's the same song. It's the same old song. It's the same thing. And until we get to this point where we start to self-reflect and ask questions of ourselves, why do good, healthy relationships turn toxic? And what part do I play in all of that? Think about it. It's not that things just happen. It's that you make them happen through your thoughts and imaginations. Your beliefs are the architects of your reality. Things don't just happen. You made them happen. Now, can you take responsibility for your life in that way? Can you take responsibility? So redefining failure is the key. When you're a winner at heart, you charge into the battle like a warrior. But if you see yourself as a loser, every tool for success feels too heavy, and you enter the battle expecting defeat. I'll say that one more time. When you're a winner at heart, when your belief is that I am put into, God gave me this job to win. God gave me this opportunity to succeed. God put me here so I could make this thing better. Think about that. When you're a winner at heart, you charge into the battle like a warrior. You're not going to see people who are not trained. If you go back to these old days where they had the swords and things like that, you're not going to see these people charging into the battle when they know they haven't practiced, they're not equipped. The only ones on the front line charging into battle are the ones who are sure and confident that they have warrior skills. But this is all a belief. I've been through a couple of battles, and I didn't lose my life. This is another battle. There's a difference between identifying with failure and seeing it as a temporary setback. Some people identify with failure. It didn't work out. It didn't work out after how long? How much effort did you try to put into working it out? In any relationship that you have or anything in life, do you ever try to put effort into rebuilding a relationship, or do you just leave it alone? Do you see what I'm saying? If you're married, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like, you can't just, it's cheaper to keep her. You can't just throw it out. You understand what I'm saying? You don't just throw your relationships away. You have children involved. There's so much at stake. But do you value people the way you value yourself? That's why Jesus said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Because if you did love your neighbor as you loved yourself, you would work on the relationship. Do you get what I'm saying? You wouldn't just throw it all away. There's some stories when you think about redefining defeat that you can think of. One is Joseph, who is betrayed by his brothers. And if that's not bad enough, he gets himself in a position where he's falsely accused of doing something that he did not do. In fact, to the point where there was enough evidence to convict him, and he went to prison. And he did go to prison for it, but he still was innocent. And he went through all that, and despite all that, he was resilient. He still served God. He still kept the faith. Hard times are a part of life. Another one you think about is Moses. He sees one of his brothers being whipped in Egypt. And what does Moses do? He goes over and he kills that man. That's him trying to be the deliverer, right? But when God found him and he found God, God sends him to be a true deliverer. And despite whatever he went through in Egypt, he still went back to help deliver the people of God. You know, those kind of things and thinking like that, those kind of things are all because of what do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about yourself? So if I was to talk a little bit about major practices to reshape your self-belief, the first on the list is definitely positive affirmation and self-talk. You probably don't really listen to the way you talk to yourself in your mind. But it really is going to start with stop downing yourself. Stop thinking negative about yourself. Start thinking differently about yourself. Daily affirmation is key. Another thing, which we did already cover, is that visualizing. Do you visualize success? What are you envisioning? Because you're producing it. I would say this. If you can't imagine yourself if you had a business and you sold t-shirts, I don't know. If you can't imagine yourself being successful, why start the business? You must first envision yourself being truly successful to even begin to go in that direction. No one begins in a direction expecting defeat, like, this isn't going to work out, but I'm going to try it anyway. I don't know how many people do that. I don't do that. But it's not a good practice to go into a direction that you don't believe is going to work out for your life. So visualize success. Surround yourself with positivity. The thing that I want you to understand is that instead of saying, I can't, right? Maybe you should start rethinking that and saying that I have a growth mindset. I'm teachable and I can learn new things. I can. Think about it. A lot of times I can't do that. I can't. You will never be able to do with can't on your lips. Because your imagination is true for your life. So here's kind of the final takeaway. Once again, if you guys are watching us online, please leave your comments. We'd love to hear from you guys online. Subscribe, share, do what you feel. If you feel someone could use this, send it out to them, encourage them. But our final takeaway today is this right here. The journey from failure to success is paved with resilience. Resilience. From failure to success, it is paved with resilience. Resilience isn't just the ability to bounce back. It's the strength to transform setbacks into stepping stones and failures into the foundation of your success. That's all I got for you guys today.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching and being a part of this community. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. You're going to get weekly videos on building a growth mindset, cultivating grit, and unlocking your full potential.